Hey, this is Daryl as a service for Guardian 365, and I'm speaking with.
Ryan Smith, a Senior Escalation Engineer from Microsoft.
Oh, Brian. Now, you're based in Redmond, and I met you online. You're on Twitter as a Twitter handle called Lunch with a Lens. What's the story behind that?
Um, it was a phase where I was going out and taking photos at lunchtime. So, I try and sort of step away from the desk and get some exercise, and always been keen on photography. So it just seemed like an ideal thing to, rather than sort of go and look for something at the weekend or whatever, it's like, okay, can I walk around the same area but sort of find new things to take pictures of? So
Hmm.
it sort of stuck from there. So I tend to use it on Twitter and Flickr and various other places.
Oh, Flickr. You're an old Flickr supporter.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was a good collection of photos. I also like that joke you made earlier too. That Lunch with a Lens is not necessarily about taking pictures of your food.
Correct. Yeah, I'm the last one. I mean, it'd have to be really, really good food to
Right.
take a picture of it. And normally, I look at an empty plate and think that was really good. I should have taken a picture of that. But
Of course. Now, the reason that we connected, as our audience knows, we've got a special interest in the message center and keeping people up to date with change in Microsoft 365. I came across a conversation and a blog post about a solution that you've helped put together, which uses Planner with Message Center. Where did that start?
well, I support Microsoft Project and Planner, as you can see on the shirt.
Yeah.
And we often have issues with customers where we'll have changed something or we'll have announced something, and the customer will sort of open a support case saying something changed. And we'll say, yeah, we told you it was changing like a month ago, or 2 months ago, or 3 months ago. And we told you again. And I often make the joke that it's a little bit like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the Vogons destroyed Earth and to make way for a hyperspace bypass. And
Right.
the instructions and the plans for this were on Alpha Centauri, and if we couldn't be bothered to go and see it, then that was our fault. And the message center sometimes comes across like that it's sometimes a difficult place for people to get to. The people that sometimes need to know can't get there, and the people that can get there don't always know the context or understand the importance of the messages
Mm.
and get them to the right people. So this idea of exposing it through Planner was really, okay, there's an API for the message center. I can use the Graph API for Planner. So how about I go off and pull that stuff out of Message Center and push it into Planner?
Hmm.
And the idea was that not everybody's interested in everything. So Planner has this concept of buckets. So bucket for SharePoint, bucket for Teams, bucket for Yammer, and then the tasks for each of those Message Center posts could be assigned to a specific person. So if a particular person looks after SharePoint, another person looks after Teams, then I can make those assignments. So it seemed like a good idea at the time. It seemed to resonate with various people as I've sort of shared it at various times. And yeah, it was good to get connected with you and to be able to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, look, the thing that stood out for me, firstly, it is about making it accessible. And I guess over the last year and a half, they introduced roles into the message center so that
Yeah.
you could allow a message center reader. But what I'm seeing, at least across customers and in the marketplace, is the IT crowds haven't quite got to that state of assigning that access to people that need it, like change managers, and this is where I sit in change management and adoption. So that's okay, but even with that access, it's not like it comes to mind that I should check this each week, does it? It's a side task. So having that as a plan definitely makes it accessible. But better than that, it becomes a task. So did you see some good uptake around that and how people are using the tasks themselves to check a message?
Yeah, I mean, I started working a little while ago with one of our consultants in the UK who, again, he'd seen the blog, saw the value of it. He'd struggled with the same thing with his customers. So, yeah, he was coming at it from the sort of the bigger picture that he works with customers and change control is his role. And he just needed to get something that made these things actionable and accountable. And I think it was, as you say, that the message center has improved sort of over the years with the various email options and being able to have the new role to be able to be a sort of a message admin. But it still doesn't quite get there of getting it into people's faces so that they can really take account of what it is they need to do and plan what they need to do about it in a sort of structured way. I mean, it's brought home to me. I did this presentation of this with my colleague, the consultant Sean Herbert from the UK, at our Ready conference in Las Vegas. And at the same conference, I had one of the technical account managers for a very large customer came up to me and said, yeah, he was coming to my session because his customer were very angry about the fact that we'd turned all his SharePoint sites into modern sites without telling them. And it's like, we've been telling them for like 6 months.
That's right.
Points that modern is coming, modern is coming. And
not just in the message center, it was in blog posts, it was in Ignite sessions. So you got to have your eyes closed, really, to not see something like that. Yeah,
but having a task that is assigned to you and you can, and other people know that you're the person that's taken action on it, and having Planner, so it's assigned to me, but somebody else is going to do the work. I can reassign it. I can add another person to it. It just makes it a lot more sort of accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where my mind started to expand and get a little blown as I was thinking about that ability to. Here's the message, and we do have varying messages. Some product groups are more detailed and have got a great process, and some are still a bit young about what they put in the message center. But there are people that on the customer side that need to action that. So we can assign a task to multiple people. Great. We can create a checklist so we can see the different tasks and different things that people have to do to get it across the board. Again, looking at it from a change management point of view, I might want to create learning resources or a little small communications campaign to create some awareness before this thing lands. And to be able to center this all around a task or even relate some other tasks to it is just completely ideal.
And with some of the discussions I've had recently talking about this, I mean, the fact that it's a plan, it can sit inside teams very nicely. So, do you have a plan with all of the different products in it, or perhaps you have a change management team and you have a channel for each project and you have a different plan in each channel, and then you can use the buckets for something else. So, I think the theory doesn't need to sort of just stay with this sort of one plan kind of approach. It could be sort of teams or whatever.
Yeah.
I agree. And I've also been talking to the message center folks as well, who are very keen to improve the experience for their users. And again, they understand that there could be more they could do. And they're quite keen on this approach. So they're looking at this, they're talking to customers, so they're sort of working out sort of what direction they need to go in. So, no plans yet on exactly how that will land, but it's certainly some very encouraging conversations that are going on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that often there's a case where someone like yourself has put their hat on and thought about what can I do with the resources I have to solve a problem. There's the Microsoft Garage is a good incubator space for that, and a lot of good solutions have come out of that have made it into the standard product. So fingers crossed, right? Hey, we should have a look at this too. I know that you've got a demo available here that we let's just switch to that.
It's on my other screen, so ignore the side
problem.
Of my face.
I don't mind if we don't have eye contact there, Brian.
Okay.
In fact, you are facing the correct direction for this. This is brilliant.
Right, excellent. I even look as though I'm looking in the right direction. Okay, so we're all familiar with the message center. And obviously we've had some improvements along the time. We've now got this sort of ways of sort of filtering it, and we can show when they've been read, that kind of thing. But what I did was sort of use some Azure functions, and they were pulling from the Office 365 Communications API to pull out the messages. And you can also pull out Service Health Dashboard with the same API. So, it could be extended in that way as well. So basically, I sort of turned this into a plan that looks like this. So each of the items that was in the message center, or the ones I'm interested in, so in this case, I'm interested in SharePoint, Teams, Yammer.
Do you have the plan on screen at the moment? Oh, there it is. Got it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is it not catching up?
Just coming through.
Right. Really good. So here's the same sort of planner view of the message center. And I can see all of those items sort of brought through. They're in particular buckets of the products I'm interested in. So I've got SharePoint, I've got Teams, Yammer. I've also created, more recently, I sort of turned this into new and updated because we have a lot of things that come through where they don't particularly tie into an existing product, but you still need to know they're coming. So this sort of catches things that might have slipped through before. Then as each of these comes through, it gets tagged at the side. So if I open this one up, so this is one of the new items that's come through. I need to do something with my formatting. I'm not a programmer. You wouldn't pay me to program. And I think some of the formatting has changed sort of over the years. That it used to sort of come through as clean text, and now it's as HTML. So I should probably sort of revisit that and do a bit of tidying up. But anyway, I pull the text through from the message. I strip out any URLs that are there and add them as attachments. So there's additional information. If I click on these, they'll go through to the same articles that are sort of appearing up here. I also tag them. I've got sort of a mapping to the kind of things that comes through from Message Center. So whether it's sort of an action, a plan for change, or an advisory or whatever. So I match it up to the tags here. Yeah. So even when you've sort of closed the task out, you can get a quick idea. So which ones are the new ones, which ones are the plan for actions, a plan for change, that kind of thing. And obviously you've got the full power of Planner here. So I can also look at this by progress. So I can see which ones are not started, which ones are in progress, which ones are complete, and even look at some of the charts as well. So I can sort of see where we are in terms of our actions against all of these. And my particular people, these are all fake people, obviously, apart from me. I'm not totally fake. So you can see here, Emily and Pradeep have got quite a lot of items that they haven't started yet. So I can see that perhaps I might need to do a bit of load balancing there. So it's a good medium for being able to sort of keep on top of change management and work out where they're going. And obviously, you've also got within the planner feature the ability to sort of add comments as well. And these go into the group mailbox. So if there's any sort of actions happening, they can happen here. If there's any more attachments that you need to add, learning materials, for example, you can add them there. And then you can also add checklist items. So you might want to sort of make sure that you've looked at governance or something like that. And any other, perhaps you've got some networking things that you might need to consider if the bandwidth of something is going to increase further than you're sort of used to using. So you can just sort of add those checklists as you need.
I would put a checklist item there for create learning resource. Again, it's all we're all involved in the change, and so it makes sense to all work together on that same task. Yeah,
indeed. So that's just a whistle-stop tour through. I mean, behind the scenes, it's using a couple of PowerShell scripts that are running as Azure functions. So it's just pulling the data out and writing it into an Azure queue, and then the queue gets triggered every time something arrives. That uses another function to take that stuff out and push it into Planner.
I know that whenever Azure's mentioned, one consideration is what sort of running costs or processing or messages is going on.
Yeah, it's funny you should ask. I checked that before I did the session for Ready with Sean. I thought, how much is this costing? So I went onto the subscription that I used for this, which had sort of been running for a year or so, and I looked up, and it had actually cost me 99 cents in terms of the running costs of sort of, and most of that was probably storage of the stuff in the queue for a very short time. So it's not big buck stuff. And I've been running this one for probably over a year. I think I've got like 400 tasks are in this one that pulled in for the products that I've flagged up here.
Right. So that's infrastructure running costs. Do you have to maintain your code base so much, or is there anything you need to update occasionally?
A little bit, yeah. I do keep an eye on it. I mean, I'm not actively using it in a sense of change management on these tasks. For me, it was a sort of a project, but I keep an eye on it. And it runs every day, and I occasionally sort of look in and say, oh, hey, there's some of these have failed. Why have they failed? I think the most recent one that failed happened to be a title, which is the thing I sort of parsed to get the product out, had an M dash in it. And I hadn't accounted for there being an M dash in it, and it had got an ampersand M and all sorts of things. And that broke that particular function. So that didn't sort of post those items. So had to go in and do a bit of maintenance there, and updated that on the GitHub repository as well. So and probably when
I was just saying that actually is a good transition to where that solution sits, because I'm sure that a number of people would be interested in implementing it, and if there are code changes to deal with M dashes and things that might slip in there, that would be the place to go, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. So this is up on GitHub. My GitHub handle is also Lunch with a Lens, and r-CSA325 just happened to be the Ready session. Now, Ready is an internal session, but none of this is sort of internal Microsoft-only stuff. This is all for external consumption and a public repository. So go at it. Yeah, probably fair to say at this point that I did it in PowerShell because I was comfortable doing it in PowerShell at the time. It uses ADAL version 2. If I was writing it again now, which I may or may not be, I would probably look to do it in C# and bring it up to date with the MSAL libraries rather than the ADAL libraries. So it is a bit of a work in progress in that sense, that I feel I should bring it up to date. Probably fair to say at this point as well, I did consider doing this with Flow, and even built a custom connector for the Office 365 Message Center to do it via Flow. And probably if you're very familiar with Flow, you could do the same kind of thing. Just for me, with my skill set, I just felt more comfortable being able to manipulate stuff and pull out URLs and update stuff using PowerShell and the Azure functions rather than Flow. But, it could be done the other way too.
Definitely. No, I think it's great what you've put together, and that as it's getting attention, and even internally at Microsoft, fingers crossed that it develops further, and that we do see a standardized solution that is simple for organizations to implement. Because look, the 99-cent running cost plus the an hour or two to get it set up is going to be worth so much more to the organization if they're able to manage change together effectively.
Yeah, and it was interesting talking to my colleague Sean this morning, saying some of the customers that he's spoken to, they tend to spend more time on the solution to manage the message center than when they should really be spending it on actually the what they need to do to cope with changes in the message center. They're almost sort of forgetting about what they need to do with the messages. They're just sort of almost doing a message handling job rather than a reactive job to work out how they're going to handle the changes that are coming through.
Can often happen, Brian, that we love our tools, and maybe we get a bit perfectionist and we tweak things to make sure they work, but then that distracts from the actual content. I'm guilty of that too sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. So the GitHub repository, Brian's giving you some details to find it, but we'll look to try and share an aka.ms short link. We'll splash that up in the across the video in post, and also in the comments as well. And I know, Brian, too, that you'll be looking to work along with the Message Center team and trying to establish a place for people to give feedback as they try the solution out.
Yeah, they were talking about putting a DL together where people just sort of post in, and myself and the PMs from the Message Center team could sort of see that feedback. They're actively engaging with customers at the moment, talking to them and showing them some of the things that we're thinking about. And I think in the Ignite time frame of sort of having a little bit more substance around that So they're the sort of time scales. But I'll find out exactly what they're going to do, whether it's going to be a DL or whether it's I don't know whether they've already got a user voice on Message Center or not. But I guess that could be another approach. But I'll find out that, and we'll get that posted in the comments, sort of post-posting as well.
I know that Ignite is still early stages, and we haven't seen anything of a schedule yet. But are you hinting that there may be a session at Ignite that covers this?
Possibly.
Of course, we'll keep that quiet. Keep a lookout for that if you are going to Ignite. And look, if you're not as well, and it does make it to be a session, then it's likely to be a recording too, with a lot more more detail and a deeper dive. Brian, look, thanks for joining us and giving some more detail, a bit of the backstory, and just showing how valuable this solution is. I know that I'm going to go away and try and implement it for ourselves and for a couple of customers. And as Daniel, Glenn, and I running the 365 Message Center show, we'll certainly do our part to help get the word out.
Excellent. Thanks very much for making the time for me, Darryl, and inviting me on.
Okay, bye for now.
Okay, thanks.